Christopher Hitchens was a lousy journalist. Look at page 396 of his book, Hitch 22. He rants about how much he hates the Israelis, but he never mentions to his readers that the Palestinians have always refused to make a peace offer. Either he was so stupid that he never noticed that fact, or else he didn't want his readers to know the truth. For readers who don't know the background information, here it is. In 2000, at the Camp David summit, Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak made a peace offer to the Palestinians, but the Palestinians rejected it. President Clinton then asked the Palestinians what their peace proposal was, and they refused to make one. They just got up and left the talks. You can read about this on pages 419 to 424 and pages 427 and 428 of a book about the Clinton administration called The Survivor by John F. Harris. Harris is a prominent journalist who, unlike Hitchens, always gathers facts before shooting off his mouth. But Hitchens was such a lousy journalist that he never asked the Palestinians why they refused to present a peace plan. The truth is that the Palestinians insist that all the Palestinian refugees in the refugee camps must be allowed to return to Israel and must be given back the real estate that they or their ancestors abandoned when they fled from Israel. If that ever actually happened, the Palestinians would be the majority in Israel, or would be so close to being the majority that because they have a higher birth rate than the Jews, they would soon be the majority. And once they were the majority, they would take over the government and they would treat the Jews like dirt. Naturally, the Jews do not want to be treated like dirt, and so the Jews will never agree to let the Palestinian refugees all return to Israel. Why did Hitchens never explain that to his readers? Was he so stupid that he didn't understand it, or did he just want to hide the truth from his readers? Either way, he was a lousy journalist. Then on page 16 of his book, No One Left to Lie To, Christopher Hitchens said that when Kathleen Willey had her famous meeting with Bill Clinton in the Oval Office, she was upset because her husband was dead. Hitchens' exact words are that Willey, quote, had suddenly become a widow, unquote, and had gone to the White House to ask for a job, and that Clinton tried to seduce her. The truth is that Willey always said that during that meeting with Clinton, she did not yet know that her husband had committed suicide. She didn't find that out until several hours after the meeting. You can read about this on pages 120 through 124 of the book Uncovering Clinton by a journalist named Michael Isikoff, who covered the Clinton administration for Newsweek magazine. Why did Hitchens falsely claim that Willey already knew her husband was dead when the meeting started? Probably because he wanted to make Clinton look like a creep who would try to seduce a grief-stricken widow. He wanted people to hate Clinton, and he feared they wouldn't do it if they knew the truth, so he resorted to lying. Either that or Hitchens was just an incompetent journalist who couldn't keep his facts straight. Then on pages 16 through 18 of his book, No One Left to Lie To, Hitchens talked about the accusation by Kathleen Willey that some stranger tried to intimidate her into not testifying against Bill Clinton. Hitchens believes this accusation, and he believed Clinton hired the guy who did it. If this accusation is true, it would definitely be an impeachable offense. It's appalling to think of a president acting like a mafia boss, telling people, if you testify against me, you'll be sleeping with the fishes. So why wasn't Clinton impeached for it? Apparently the Republicans never thought there was enough evidence to support the accusation. What Hitchens failed to explain here is why nobody else took this witness intimidation accusation seriously. Did it really never occur to him that his readers might wonder about that? He didn't mention any left-wing or moderate journalists who agreed with him about this, nor any right-wing journalists either, for that matter. When he talked about this accusation with other left-wing journalists and activists, many of whom were his friends, what did they say? He should have told us, because naturally his readers would want to know if anybody else saw it the way he did. Was every single left-wing journalist and activist an imbecile who couldn't understand the evidence that Hitchens found so persuasive? Go down the list. Victor Navasky, Jonathan Chait, Michael Kinsley, Joe Klein, Katha Pollitt, Noam Chomsky, Charlie Peters, Bill Moyers, Eric Alterman, Barbara Ehrenreich, and so on. Were they all too dim-witted to understand the evidence? That seems hard to believe. Or were they all so biased and corrupt that they were willing to let Clinton make terroristic threats against a harmless private citizen? If that is true, left-wing journalists and activists must be remarkably disgusting people. Is every single one of them a piece of garbage? Was Hitchens, a militant atheist, declaring here that the average Christian fundamentalist churchgoer was more honest in judging Clinton than the than the secular left-wing journalists of America were? I suspect the truth here is that this witness intimidation story was not credible, and if Hitchens had quoted Victor Navasky, Michael Kinsley, and others talking about it, they would have explained why they didn't believe it, and their explanations would have been persuasive. Therefore, Hitchens decided to not tell his readers what those people thought. He wanted to keep his readers ignorant. Good journalists try to educate their readers, but Hitchens was not a good journalist. He did not want to do that. This incident is one of the main reasons why I find it amazing that when Hitchens died, the eulogies for him in the Atlantic Monthly, Newsweek, and The Nation sang his praises. I feel like asking the editors of those magazines, if Hitchens was such a wonderful journalist, why did your magazine ignore his claim that Clinton practiced witness intimidation? Why did you ignore such a major story? If you did it because the story was based on inadequate evidence, then you have to admit that Hitchens was a lousy journalist who made a major accusation based on nothing.